friends, welcome back to another episode of Exploring the Outdoors. Today, me and Patrick are going to be talking to you about a lot of different things, but they all focus around one topic, the nighttime. Now, I know that nighttime often brings up a lot of fear for people, things that we aren't able to see, getting lost, things like that. But I find that the more we learn about something, the less afraid of it that we are. So today we're going to learn about what might live outside, how our body and other animal bodies react at nighttime, and things that you can do that are going to make the nighttime pretty cool. All right, so unfortunately, we aren't able to actually take you out on a night hike today. But what we are going to do is we're going to discuss several different activities you can do once the sun goes down, either by yourself or with a friend or with a family member. These activities are also designed so that you can do them inside or outside. But as we're doing them, there's two important things you need to keep in mind. One, we gotta make sure we're staying as quiet as possible, especially if you go outside. Humans make a lot of noise, we have a lot of smells that animals can notice, and it keeps other organisms away from us while we're there. So if you want to see other organisms or hear things such as crickets or frogs or birds that come out at night, then you're gonna have to make sure you're being as quiet as you can. Number two, we need to make sure that we aren't using any white light. White light affects our night vision in a way that's going to impact several of our experiments. So if you're afraid of the dark and you do need a light, what I recommend doing is taking a flashlight and covering it with a red balloon or a red film of some sort so that the light is red. Red light affects our eyes differently than white light does, so it'll be able to show you where to go without affecting your night vision. All right, our first two activities today are going to focus all around vision. Have you ever noticed when you go outside at night, you can't see anything at first, but after a couple minutes, you're suddenly able to see things much clearer? That's because human eyes are adapted to be able to see both during the day and during the night. And that's because there's two different kinds of receptors inside of our eyes that allow us to do that. During the day, what's most active is our cones. So cones allow us to see color. They allow us to distinguish between what is red and what is green, what is blue, what is yellow, and so on and so forth. It really helps us identify the things around us. However, at night, our rods are more activated. Rods are what allow us to have our night vision. But unfortunately, in order for our rods to work, we have to get rid of our color vision. So that's why at night, when you look around, things look like they're black and white instead of in different color. And today we're going to do an activity that's going to demonstrate this ability. All right, so the first activity, I'm going to need you to go get these different materials. It's very simple. All you need is some scrap paper, and I need you to get some different color crayons. Primarily the primary colors, but you can use additional colors as well. It's also important that when you take these crayons, they don't have the color labeled on the side of them. I usually recommend just tearing the paper off and just using the wax crayon by itself. Then what I need you to do is find a place that's nice and dark, like a bathroom with no windows, or to do it at night when there's not going to be any white light at all impacting your vision.
All right, once you've collected all the materials, I need you to find that dark space we were talking about. Just as a reminder, we want there to be as little white light here as possible. That means that if you're inside, you need to block the bottoms of doors, that way light doesn't come through. If we're outside, that means we need to make sure that the moon isn't shining too bright, that we can't see any street lights, no lights and windows are on around us, things along those lines. The more white light there is, the more our cones will be activated. And cone, if you remember, help us see color. And we don't want to be able to see color, we want to be specifically using our rods for our night vision. All right, once you found that dark space, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to sit there for a couple minutes and wait for our eyes to adjust. Remember, we're making sure all those cones deactivate so that our color vision has gone away. Second, I need you to take one of those crayons and hold it up and look at it. You can hold it as close or as far away from your face as you want. What's important is that you focus on trying to identify the color. Once you think you know what the color is, I want you to write that color with that crayon on a piece of paper, and then set those both to the side. You're going to repeat this process for every single crayon that you have with you. At the end of the activity, you can turn the lights back on and you can see how many you got right and how many you got wrong. You'll know they're right because the word will be written in the same color that it says, meaning the word yellow would be written in yellow or the word blue would be written in blue. If the word and the color don't match, let's say the word is blue but it's written in red, then that means you got it wrong.
So for this activity, you're gonna need a few things, and you might need an adult's help, because you're gonna need 1, a candle, and 2, a lighter. What I need you to do is you're gonna light that candle and you're gonna find yourself a place that is super dark, preferably somewhere with no windows and no white light that Andy talked about. So you could do this outside if you wanted. What you're gonna do then is you're gonna sit that candle down and you're gonna step away from it. You're gonna look at it, but you're gonna become a pirate. And we're gonna cover one eye. Now make sure you cover it fully, not like this. You're gonna do it just like this. And you're gonna hold that hand up to your eye for as long as I tell you this entire story. As I tell you this story, continue to look at the candle with the one eye that is not covered. Once upon a time, there lived 2 rival pirates, Captain Redbeard and Captain Blackbeard. Both traveled far and wide throughout the Great Lakes in search of the lost treasure, but only one had the treasure map. Captain Redbeard took great care to protect the treasure map from the Captain Blackbeard so that he might be the first to find the hidden treasure. On a night, much like tonight, Captain Redbeard went below deck to study his chart and treasure map, believing he was now only a few days' journey away from the treasure. What Captain Redbeard did not realize was that Captain Blackbeard's ship had been following him in the dark night, plotting to take over Captain Redbeard's ship and steal the treasure map. At that very moment, Captain Blackbeard's crew attacked, coming aboard the ship. Captain Redbeard heard the commotion above deck, quickly hid the map and waited for Captain Blackbeard below. As soon as Captain Blackbeard came into the light, Captain Redbeard blew out the candle, switched his eye patch to the other eye, and used the night vision to fight poor Captain Blackbeard, who was surprised by the candlelight and immediately lost his night vision. Now that the story is over, I want you to blow out the candle and switch the eye that your hand was covering. Look around. Now switch from eye to eye. Which eye has better night vision, the eye with the patch or the eye that sees by candlelight? It takes people around 45 minutes to fully gain their night vision, so pirates keep one eye in the dark under a patch.
All right, our third activity is actually going to be all about creating light. Now here's what I want you to do. I want you to think about what you would imagine is the most common source of light that we have. A lot of people are gonna say the sun, or you might think a fire out in the woods. A lot of us might even just think of our light bulbs in our ceilings and the lamps around us. And these are very common ways that we get light access to ourselves. However, they're not the only ways that we get light. That's a process that we call luminescence, the process of creating and perceiving light. For example, there is bioluminescence, or light created just from the biological processes of living. Think like a firefly or a lightning bug. Or if you're familiar with an anglerfish, they also create their own light down at the bottom of the ocean to help lure in their prey. There's also something called photoluminescence, or creating light by absorbing light from other things. This is the way that our glow-in-the-dark toys work. However, my personal favorite is triboluminescence. It's a pretty difficult word to say, so I'm gonna say it one more time. Triboluminescence. And basically all that means is the creation of light by rubbing, crunching, smashing, or otherwise just causing friction between 2 different things. One chemical in particular that does this is sugar crystals. And so there's a very easy way for you to create triboluminescence all on your own. All you're going to need is a Winto Green Lifesaver Mint. And it's very important that it's this kind. It comes in a green bag, it says Winto Green right there on the front, all right? Now, let me give you the instructions on how this activity is going to work.
This activity is very simple. All you need to do is take your Winto Green mints and go into a dark room. You don't even have to wait for your eyes to adjust because we're going to be creating white light anyway. Now, I need you to either have a mirror while you do this or to have someone be your partner in the process. If you're gonna do this with a mirror, make sure that you are looking into the mirror, especially looking into your mouth. If you have a partner, make sure you're facing each other so that you can see each other's faces. When we do this as partners, make sure you select one person to be what I like to call the chewer, and one person to be what I call the viewer. Once you've done this once, you all can switch places. So the person who was the chewer can now become the viewer, and the person who was the viewer can now become the chewer. Once you've decided on your roles or you've found a mirror that you can use, I want you to take that Lifesaver mint and put it somewhere in the back of your mouth, somewhere that you can crunch it really well. Typically, I like to put it between my molars. Once you've done that, I need you to do something very, very important. I need you to chew that mint, crunch it as hard as you can with your mouth open, as wide open as you can possibly get it. I want to be able to see all of your teeth. This is important because if your mouth is closed, we're not going to be able to see the reaction. I know, it's bad manners, but I think your parents will forgive you. This is for science. While you're looking, you may notice that you're seeing what looks like static electricity. This is the triboluminescence, and it's caused whenever you crunch down and it breaks the sugar crystals. I should note that this works better if you have a fresher mint. That means don't use a mint that's too old or too soft or chewy. If it doesn't crunch well, then you're not going to be able to see the triboluminescent activity. Now, if you're doing this as a partner, this would be the time when you would flip it around and let the other person be the viewer while someone else is the chewer. Feel free to keep doing this experiment as much as you would like, or until you run out of mints. Otherwise, Patrick is going to share our last activity with you.
For this last activity, we're going to talk about the night sky. Since the earliest of time, people have always looked at the stars and tried to make shapes out of them, which we call constellations. The Greeks were known for having over 48 constellations, and to this day, we now have 88 constellations that now span the entirety of our night sky. But what really is a constellation? It really is just an imaginary shape that we've created in the sky. And I'm going to help you identify some of the major three that we can see year-round. Our first constellation is Ursa Major. This is the third largest constellation in the sky. Its name is Latin for Great Bear. This constellation is easily identified by an asterism or a shape that we call a saucepan. Its 7 brightest stars form this shape and is popularly known as the Big Dipper. Our second constellation is Ursa Minor. This constellation represents a small bear with a long tail. At the tip of the bear's tail lies the Northern Star, or called Polaris, which is the brightest star in the constellation. Ursa Minor is sometimes called the Little Dipper. This is because its main stars form a shape that look like a smaller version of the Big Dipper in the constellation Ursa Major. Our last constellation is Orion. This constellation depicts a giant hunter of Greek mythology. He is depicted raising his club and shield against a charging bull, Taurus, which forms the neighboring constellation. Orion is easily identified by a line of 3 stars that mark his belt. If you're having a hard time finding some constellations, that's okay. It's probably because of 2 things. One being the light pollution in your area is just too much. Cities give off a lot of artificial light, which makes it very hard to see those constellations in the sky. The second being that constellation just might not be there. Because the Earth is constantly moving, the constellation that you might be able to see in the springtime may not be there in the winter. So, to help you out, there are a few handy-dandy apps that you can find on the App Store that may be able to help you with identifying more constellations. All right, thanks for joining us on this episode of Exploring the Outdoors. We hope you enjoyed and hopefully you had fun doing those activities.